I think we're live.
We're doing it live.
Doing
Yeah.
it live. It's happening.
Say it every time. Doing it live.
It's
It
happening.
looks
We're
like
here.
there must my internet connection must be pretty bad because holy shit. 55% drop frames. Like Jesus Christ.
That's the way of it.
So
Yeah,
was Nick really in some of our streams?
Oh yeah, he was in lots of streams.
Yes.
That's cool.
Lots of streams.
I wish
He's
I was.
Yeah, he's
I
part of
wish
the
I
stream.
was there to.
Yeah, good lord. So how does everything look? Or does it sound okay?
I'm watching on YouTube.
Yeah,
Maybe it's still live.
I think
Looks
it's
like
still
you have a
live.
Gengar shirt. Is what it looks like.
Yeah, no, I don't think it hasn't been cut ooh, there, it might have been cut. There's just been, oh no, it's just saying drop frames detect 48%. So there hasn't been a notification yet saying that we're offline or that it's been kicked. Holy shit. It's now down to 500 kilobytes per second. That's really bad. So there's some Comcast. Thanks, Comcast. Thanks, Comcast. You're really. Oh,
Yeah,
it's now back up
real
to.
nice.
Oh, it's up to 1500s. Oh my god, it is rough, guys. It's now down to 400. Well, I guess it's crazy. It jumps from like 2000 down to 400 up to.
Yeah, that seems like what when I tried to host these things, what was going on. I don't know. I think it's still working though.
It's never
Well,
been
maybe
so
not.
bad here for me. Like, I don't know what. I guess there's a lot of traffic Tuesday evening, huh? You know?
Must be it.
Alright, well, I guess
Must be it.
that's enough talk about drop frames. We're going to do this regardless, even if we are losing 60% of the frames.
We could stop this and start it again, to be honest, and delete the other videos.
Alright, we're going to end it right now. Hey, we're going live. I think we're live again. We're back.
Doing it live?
Yeah,
We're doing it live. We're doing it live.
Yeah.
Again.
No, there were some issues with.
Yeah, it seems like my
Drop
internet
frame.
provider is not doing well this Thursday or Tuesday evening, rather. But I guess we're gonna try and keep on going and see how it goes. So
Yeah. Seems par for the course for Comcast. Anyone
it
on.
does. Yeah,
Well,
it does.
yeah, just not so great, but
Well,
whatever.
so we just wanted to touch base with everyone and talk a little bit about our hobby progress tonight, and also potentially talk a little bit about some of the new releases by Games Workshop and some other interesting and cool like modeling projects and or models we found that we thought are worthwhile and worth touching on.
Yeah, no, it sounds good.
So first I thought we'd just talk a little bit about the models and stuff the three of us have been working on. I guess most recently I finished work on a Space Marine operative, which I have pictured here. This model is to mark the second model for our Conversion Corner series, where we try and more quickly create a conversion, largely through just piecing together stuff from different kits. So more like an actual kit bash rather than a sculpting project like most of my newer models seem to be. And the
Yeah, I
main
mean, why
ration-
else would we make a Space Marine?
Yeah, and Space Marines are cool and all, but most of the time I don't have too many things I want to explore. At least not in terms of regular human operatives. But for this model, I played around with a bunch of ideas in my head of things that I wanted to try with some of the new Primaris Space Marines. The main thing I wanted to do was convert one with a Genestealer Cultist shotgun. Because ever since those shotguns came out, I always was pretty impressed with them. I think they're some of the better designed looking GW weapons. They're still a little oversized, particularly for like human operators, but in terms of like a Space Marine, I thought it would feel right at home. And I guess to this point, I don't really think I don't think I've really seen other people doing similar conversions. And I mean, we've seen these shotguns on tons of Inc 28 conversions and the like, but I don't think I've ever seen one on a Space Marine.
Yeah, no, I feel, and since the release of the Primaris models as well, Primaris Space Marines, I feel a lot of people have at least tried to make Deathwatch Space Marines, and the Deathwatch can get shotguns, and lots of people have kind of made conversions with that, although from what I've seen, have all used the plastic shotgun contained in some of the Deathwatch model kits. And they're not good looking. They're not good looking. There's just this gigantic slab of adamantium or iron that, I don't know, it doesn't. Oh, it's just bad. They look bad. They're too large. They don't really even look like guns. They couldn't
hold them effectively. They're not using all that extra space to hold more shotgun shells. We know that's not the case.
Yes, as though the Adeptus Mechanicus lost the technology to make like a good shotgun and for the Space Marine, so they make those big, poorly engineered things, whereas like the lowly Genestealer cultists, they have more traditional firearms similar to what we would have like today in like 2019, and they're better.
How did it happen?
How did it happen? Well, I guess the Mechanicus is probably adhering strictly to their STC template constructs, whereas all these other worlds where it's just humans manufacturing stuff, good old human ingenuity is producing a better shotgun.
Yeah. So that was the main thing. That was the main thing I wanted to do. I wanted to make a conversion of a Space Marine with a Genestealer called the shotgun. And while I was at it, I had a couple other things I wanted to explore. One, also weapon related, was ever since they released the new Deloc Necromunda gang, I was intrigued by the little, what they call flechette pistol, and thought that it could potentially be used to make a cool, like, bolter for a Space Marine. And so I fashioned that into a bolter, which in the end I didn't even have to do that much in the line of converting. I cut off some of the extra details, replaced the barrel with a much smaller series of brass tubing. I moved the magazine of the weapon back a little further and like added a rear sight.
Well, so I feel when a lot of people would look at this model and see that, they would probably just assume that's a bolt pistol, kind of based on just general Games Workshop imagery would suggest that that could be what that is.
Yeah.
Although the fact that they have a stock on it would kind of suggest otherwise. And I feel, I don't know, some people might sort of think there's sort of a conflict there, but I feel admittedly, if anyone has like seen any sort of submachine gun, whether it's like an Uzi, an Ingram gun, an MP7, all these different like sort of submachine guns, I mean, they're not that different in size from like a large pistol. just they have like a stock fashioned into them and all these things, such that honestly, like I don't think if they're using the same rounds, like if the bolt pistol uses the same rounds as a bolter, like I don't think it would be much of a stretch to say that they like just a bolt pistol would be very different from like a sort of a carbine like submachine gun version of a bolter. So I don't know. I feel they kind of go hand in hand together,
Yeah.
the sizes, and then maybe if there would be like if you'd want a rifle or something, it might be slightly longer. Like they would just have perhaps a longer barrel or something of that nature. But
All right.
the
Greg came
basic
through
weapon
and
would be similar.
he found a picture of here. This is an HK MP7, I guess. So this is like a little submachine gun. And so in relationship to like the operative, I mean, they're really small.
I mean, isn't it basically the size of a Mark 23 SOCOM almost?
Yeah, it's about the same size.
Which is just one of their
larger
45 pistols. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, I mean, there. And honestly, so I feel that is fairly comparable to the weapon you converted, other than the fact that it's really fucking tall, like, which is a classic bolter design.
Yeah.
But if you just compare the size of the hands and such there, they're not that dissimilar to the weapon you converted for that Space Marine. I don't think.
And I mean, I feel also like if you just look at this, I mean, it's not really all that small. Like it's still
No.
I feel the biggest thing that I think I like about the Locke weapon in general is how thin it is. Like it's significantly thinner than most of the Games Workshop weapons, and I think that makes more sense in terms of like weapon design. But yeah, so I mean, compared to like normal Space Marine weapons, both weapons are very small, and so I think we'll probably continue to experiment with weapon designs and stuff for Space Marines. But I feel it's something that people just have to get used to. Like I think a lot of
So
people.
it'd be kind of cool to take a design like that and maybe make some other variants of it. One perhaps with a slightly longer barrel, maybe the casing like on the front foregrip and stuff be a little bit longer and such.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'll probably try and make another model. Maybe even make another Marine, like having more of like a two-handed grip with a weapon like this. See if I can do it. See how horrible it is to fashion. It's probably gonna be rough. But and then I guess the only other thing that I should comment about the model, the body and the upper thighs of the model were taken from one of the Reaver Space Marines, and then the lower like shins and feet were taken from one of the standard Primaris Intercessors. And the reason for this was primarily just the Reavers have a lot of nice like combat webbing and pouches and stuff on them that adds like a lot of extra detail that I think is pretty fitting to like a Space Marine. And if you go with just the standard Space Marine Intercessor models, like you'd actually have to add all of that yourself, and it's a lot more of a pain. So
yeah, it's true. Nah, I mean it seems like it went together pretty well, and in that sense, you didn't have all those knee fins to cut off either, right?
no, that's true. I did not. I just
Not that's hard to do, but
yeah. So I don't know if anyone's looking to convert some Space Marines, consider using the thighs and bodies of the Reaver Space Marines and the lower legs. Because I know when the Reavers came out, there were a lot of people who really didn't like them because of their like high top sneaker variant of like leg armor. And so you could pretty easily just get away from that if you just cut off the lower legs and replace them. And fortunately, most of the Space Marine poses and stuff between a lot of the kits are pretty similar. So if you look around enough, you can find replacements that you can get essentially a similar pose. And that's what I did here.
What was your thought around giving the shoulder pads for the Marine, giving them the Reaver shoulder pads? Are their sizes different, or?
I didn't actually compare them too much, but I think the sizes are pretty much the same. It's just the Reaver ones have that additional cutout at the edges. And I don't know, I sort of like the look of that, and you might be able to argue that cutout would make it easier for a Marine to use a weapon with a stock. I don't actually know. I'll have to experiment more with it to see if that's actually true, but that's...
Yeah, I wonder why they even, because I feel that could potentially be true, but I wonder why Games Workshop decided to do that in the first place.
Just to try and make the armor look a little lighter without actually doing much. Yeah.
Yeah, that does seem reasonable.
Yeah, Space Marines. We made a Space Marine. There it is.
Yeah, man, you posted some pictures on Instagram, and it hands down got like the most likes we've ever gotten.
It's like not
over doubled our like post from 2018. The power of Space Marines, I guess.
Yeah.
The power of Space Marines.
Yeah, I was pretty surprised. Who knew people liked Space Marines?
Guess this means you have to do some more in the future. Yeah, well, if we ever do, or if you do make some periodically, I have to keep pushing people's thoughts and imagery of a Space Marine. And I think, Greg, you had mentioned it once, but should probably make one holding a las gun.
Yeah, people would lose their shit.
Get back to the Rogue Trader roots. Or I should make a Death Company, a Blood Angels Death Company Marine with a las pistol and a bolt pistol. I'm pretty sure at least that model existed. I remember, and I think there were a few others. Like, hell yeah, that's cool. Make them really small. It would be great.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'll keep pushing the Space Marine imagery and their weapon designs and sizes. We'll see if I can go smaller. Can I go smaller? I think I can. I still have to design a bolt pistol, an actual bolt pistol. That's probably what I should do for the next model. Have a bolt pistol.
Well, I guess one thing that's maybe also worth saying, over the weekend, right, you did live stream through Twitch and YouTube actually working on converting this model, right, Adam?
That's true. Yeah, I've been experimenting around a little bit with doing some Twitch streams of like me working on miniatures and stuff and kind of giving some of my thought process. I feel overall it's gone pretty well. There have been some struggles, like I don't think I have my camera situated. It's situated okay, but I've been having trouble with the focusing. I think primarily because I have other stuff in its field of view that it wants to focus on rather than what I'm working on. But we'll get through that.
But yeah, so if you're interested in watching some of that after the fact, they should be on Twitch and YouTube. I guess it's worth noting that they are, since they're recording of live stream material, they're like not edited at all. So it's not like, oh, you can go in there and watch like a 6-minute video that just shows the highlights of how to do this or that. So
no, you have to watch it all, listen to all the banter and all the bullshit. So if that's for you,
looking at some pictures of old Rogue Trader Marines, there's the one that's holding the Shuriken catapult.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Like that Eldar gun.
Mm-hmm. That would be cool.
Oh yeah, I remember that. But I guess that's also, so if anyone's interested, let us know if you would like to see more of us attempting to stream like converting and working on models and that sort of thing. And if there was any type of thing you'd like to see. But I mean, in these ones, you at least did do some sculpting and things like that. So can watch kind of method behind that and how you go about it and the tools you use and stuff like that. So I feel even though they may be somewhat long, there's some good information there. And ultimately, sculpting and stuff is a long process. Like there are a lot of steps, and you have to be pretty careful and patient with it. So that's sort of the nature of the game.
I guess related to that in terms of sculpting and everything, I've been doing some more work on the Sisters of Sigmar for this summer's like Mordheim event, and so it's largely just been continuing sculpting more clothing on the different models. Like I'm working on sculpting like the boots and stuff. So this sister here, you can tell one of the boots is largely finished and the other foot doesn't have a boot yet, but rest assured she'll have another boot in a little while.
It's not like one of those Cawdor models that some that don't have shoes, some do.
Yeah, not doing that. And then I guess also I've been continuing working on the first Sister of Sigmar as well, adding a few other details and stuff. And I think I'm getting close to the point where I think I can call this model finished. So that's good. I'll soon have one of the models done.
Yeah, that's great. I admit I haven't done a whole lot of hobby-related stuff. I assembled a Adeptus Titanicus Warhound and am hoping to try to prime it and maybe start painting it, as well as I also pretty much finished trimming and assembling all the Blackstone models from Blackstone Fortress and hope to play it sometime soon. But other than that, I feel been spending just a lot of time writing posts for the blog. We actually just released something sort of reviewing all the projects and things we've been working on, or we had been working on in 2018. It's worth going to check out, if only just to sort of see some of the stuff we've been doing, and it might be an easier way than waiting through all the months, that sort of thing. So,
well, Eric, since you were saying you weren't doing a whole lot of hobbying, don't worry, I was doing some hobbying for you. I've also been working on a model for Eric's Mordheim band as well, and largely just taking an Urgul model from Blackstone Fortress and like humanizing it a little more. And I think so far my favorite detail in the model that I'm working on is resculpting the teeth on the model. I've at least been relatively happy with that. It's kind of a pain to sculpt the teeth that small, but it's...
Is that all just using a color shaper, or did you also...
It was largely done with a color shaper, and then once I got the teeth in place, I just kind of, with an X-Acto knife, pressed down or in kind of like semi-random areas to try and get the teeth like a little more pointed and stuff, and it worked okay.
Okay.
But, yeah. So, I think that's roughly covers all the models and stuff we've been working on. And I guess with that maybe we can lead on. One of the things we think we want to start doing a regular session on these Twitch streams where we start talking about other hobbyists and talk about a model or two we've seen that we really liked what they were working on. And so the first one we wanted to talk to everybody about is someone on Instagram with the profile of Forge World Tigress, and we recently started looking at some of his stuff, and he has a wonderful selection of like Adeptus Mechanicus models, and in particular is this one here, it's like a converted Skitarii with a variant of a plasma rifle. I feel this like combines a lot of really cool elements, and they make a lot of like the elements Games Workshop tend to put in all their weapons like actually work, when I think in Games Workshop's case they often don't. So here, for a lot of his models, I'm assuming it's a he, that may or may not be true, but one of the immediately noticeable things is they take and sort of fix the proportion of the models. He makes them a little larger by like extending the legs and everything, and that I feel goes a long way with making some of the weapons and stuff look a lot better.
And I think to add to that, like particularly if someone's not watching this or just listening to it, I feel so it's like, yeah, sort of an Adeptus Mechanicus Skitarii sort of model, but a lot of it is converted from a Genestealer Cultist model, in which a lot of the legs and the torso are from a Genestealer Cultist model, but then sort of below the knees have been removed, and they've added the sort of Skitarii legs, those bionic legs, and sort of that combination such makes, as Adam, you were saying, the model a fair bit taller. And then I think they're primarily Skitarii arms, with in one of the Skitarii heads, without one of the hoods. But I feel this sort of clever combination of some of these parts results in a model that seems instantly recognizable as some sort of Skitarii warrior, even though there are some very distinctive Genestealer Cultist parts, but it is very seamless integration of those such that you just sort of see Skitarii despite all the additional pieces and such.
Well, I feel... Or keep going.
You keep going.
I was going to say, I mean, it feels like, yeah, very obviously that's a Skitarii thing, but it also looks like very much its own version of a Skitarii, such that I feel like, while it reads as a Skitarii, it doesn't just feel like the same old Skitarii stuff that we've seen now for a few years.
Yeah.
And I mean, he still has kind of a bulky backpack and a bunch of cables going to their sort of plasma weapon, but I feel it still has some level of compactness that isn't often seen. And I guess the plasma weapon is primarily made from a Forge World Volkite charger, or one of the Volkite weapons.
Whatever that is.
Yeah, but I think it results in the weapon is relatively truncated. I mean, it's still a large weapon, but it's not like super long or anything. And it has a pretty nice profile that still is sort of recognizable as a plasma weapon, I think. I mean, it's interesting that they do have all these cables going from it into the backpack, but while they're still pretty large and such, I think it works quite well. Unlike, I feel, many of Games Workshop models, they'll have all these thick cables going from their las cannons and this and that, and they seem maybe a little bit overdone or not necessary. Whereas I feel it works pretty well, and it doesn't seem like it's getting in the way as much as sometimes like the Devastator models and some of those can sometimes feel.
Well, so a critique on the model, like from the front, the longer legs look good, but if you look at the back, I feel like it kind of falls victim to like the thighs don't, or the legs don't attach like you'd think they should.
Well, yeah, it's the classic GW squatting pose.
Like it's a squatting pose, whereas like if you look at the front of the model, like it looks like he's standing up nice and fairly straight and good. Um, and like wow, like you don't see a pose quite like that from GW a lot. Then you turn around the back, it's like, oh yeah, I see what it used
Yeah.
to be.
Yeah, I feel that's a difficult thing that like so many of Games Workshop models have that sort of really broad, wide stance
Yeah,
that
it's hard to get
can be
around.
somewhat awkward to work with if you don't want to convey that. But I still think it's a good effort. I think this is maybe one from a kill team of a bunch of other models with various sort of plasma weaponry, each kind of converted in a different way. And I think the one that we've been talking about is certainly the strongest effort, or I guess the one I like the best.
Yeah,
That
overall, I like
still
all of
looks
them.
like a plasma weapon.
He's my that the our first one we talked about's my favorite. He's like remarkably cool. I
There's
really
one
like
that
him.
made that just has kind of a normal Space Marine plasma weapon, which just it just
So
goes to
big.
show and reminds you how gigantic they are. One also is uh, the plasma weapon is converted with a um, Adeptus or like the Imperial Guard Hell guns from the Scions,
Mm-hmm.
and it's somewhat hilarious to see that it's like a Hell gun with the barrel cut off and a plasma pistol put in the front, and it looks pretty good. But it's sort of hilarious that that's supposed to be like a compact pistol-like weapon, and it looks just like it could be a large rifle sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, the scaling. I mean, I guess admittedly, it's a Space Marine sized weapon. But having said that, a lot of Imperial Guard models and like stuff of that nature have had the same weapons of basically the same size. So I don't know. Yeah, they're just so large. And I guess that's one of the things that I like about this model so much is that you just basically used a different weapon entirely,
Yeah,
but
it works
still
great.
ended up making the same thing.
Yeah, so
But
I guess all's that to say, if you haven't been like following the work of Forge World Tigris, you should. He's has a lot of really cool conversions.
it's worth spending some time to look over some of their stuff.
And I feel he's sort of I feel he's inspired me. If I ever do another Skitarii conversion, I'll probably have to try and do something similar. Works really well. Okay. So then I guess one of the other things that I thought we could talk a little bit about is not that. Not Gene Stealer Cultist. A really neat sculpt that is based off of an like at least I think a pretty well known illustration by Ian Miller of like this weird like World War II-esque like bio soldier.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's what Ian Miller had been at least worked with Games Workshop for a while, for at least for maybe a few years, way back, probably in the 80s or something, and did a lot of really excellent, detailed, creepy realms of chaos, pieces of artwork, and whatnot. But it's since kind of moved on and is still creating a lot of really excellent art work. And this particular piece, I don't think it was actually a Games Workshop one, but it kind of holds that sort of grim, dark imagery that you would sort of associate with Warhammer 40,000. But it was always
You mean grim and dark imagery, not grim dark imagery, I presume.
yeah.
That's true. Well, regardless, I forget what's the name of the sculptor. I think is somewhere I saw the name of the sculptor.
Yeah, I think it says on the store page. It's someone from I want to say is from Belgium. All of the is ZBrushed sculpt like digital sculpting.
Yeah.
Oh, Christian Hartman did the sculpt. It's like an 85 millimeter sculpt, and it looks super cool. So if any of you are fans of Ian Miller, and also like miniatures, it's certainly something that might be worth checking out. And I guess the model is from Red Piano Miniatures. This is, I feel, largely the first I'd really heard of them, but like, you know, I'm pretty excited about the model, and we'll see. I don't know, maybe we'll get one and do something with it. But yeah, a lot of really cool imagery and stuff, and I feel
Yeah,
like,
I kind of wonder what inspired them to make a model out of this sort of imagery. Like, why this particular piece? I mean, of all things.
awesome.
I mean, it's certainly a fairly iconic one if you're aware of his work, that sort of thing. But it's still like the company itself, Red Piano Miniatures, certainly like this is one of maybe two models they thus far have. So it is interesting to like think about how, yeah, this was one of the first two that they decided to make. I mean, I presumably they well, yeah, they had to have gotten Ian Miller's blessing. I mean, he's signed a bunch of prints for some of them, so but yeah, I wonder what sort of how this transpired. I think it'd be maybe an interesting story.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, really cool. All right. So what else do I guess we at least loosely talked about some other things we could talk about. We could spend a little bit of time and talk about some of the new releases that Games Workshop has. I don't know what your thoughts of that, everybody.
We could do that. I feel like we should try to make this stream be kind of short.
Yeah, it's
We
really
all need to go to bed.
All right. So
It's not a good time.
it's not a great time for streaming. We'll have to change it.
Why don't we
eventually.
talk about GW's model of the year?
It
We
seems
could
like
do
it.
that. That's like
Yeah, so I guess
interesting.
yeah. The Warhammer community page, I guess, put up a thing that people could vote on their favorite model of the year, and which I think is a cool idea, and I'm glad they did it. But it was somewhat interesting. I mean, I don't know how they would do a better job per se, but they like every single release was on here, so it was kind of hard
Big
to wade
list.
through. You couldn't easily like, oh, just there weren't like just pictures, and you could easily look like, oh yes, this was released this year, I like that. Or even if you knew like there's that one Blackstone Fortress model I really like, but then you have to wade through like hundreds of names, and if you don't know what it's called, like, yeah, it was interesting. So
I feel like the
I
best
guess
thing would be
so many models.
yeah, the best thing would have been if they had a picture of each model and you could like select it. But I mean, that would have been a ton of work, I guess, to get it working.
Yeah, with so many models.
But the community has spoken. In the top 3 models, number 3 is the Great Unclean One. It's a good model. Number 2.
Yeah, I feel that was it.
Yeah, I feel that's
I
probably
mean,
deserved.
maybe spoiler here. This is, I feel, the best of the models. The top 3, in my opinion. Like, good. Really, I think it was a really good redesign of the classic sort of imagery. It's nice to finally have it in plastic, and like,
Oh yeah,
I pretty much like everything about the model.
yeah, it's really good.
Yeah, it's a good model.
I think it's a stronger effort than the Bloodthirster, for example.
Yeah, Bloodthirster's a little wonky.
I feel like this does a good job of taking some elements from the excellent Forge World one and some other kind of Nurgle elements and sort of infusing them And yeah, I don't know. I think it's a good model.
Yeah, it's cool.
I feel it's good that it's included here.
All right, number 2, Morathai, or maybe that's not how you pronounce her name, but one of the dark elf like queens of sorts. It was like a dual kit where you have one where she's in her more human form, and then a second when she's in more of her like serpent, like demonic form.
I guess like the serpent form is somewhat interesting. Although admittedly, when we think about the year that they had both these evil elves as well as the underwater deepkin sort of elves, like in both had kind of a large hero model. I feel this one pales in comparison to the deepkin one with the water, the really long flowing water cloak. I think is an awesome model, and I feel more interesting, unique imagery than this particular one.
I mean, it's a fine model all in all, but like, I don't like all the design elements for it.
Yeah, yes, I wasn't a huge fan of any of the models in this particular range. And Sheep was maybe the best of them, though. I guess I don't. Yeah,
no, maybe.
What do you think, Greg?
Of all the Dark Elf model, I mean, she's well sculpted.
I think the
so we kind of talked about her on a podcast a while ago. Like, it's weird that like her serpent body is huge and the rest of her humanoid body is small. I mean, I don't love it.
I think that also the one on foot or whatever, I feel it's like they didn't know what, or the poses. I mean, I guess it's supposed to be kind of a commanding spell casting pose, perhaps, but it seems a little bit too much. I'm standing here and not like a dynamics, like what was Ulrich the Slayer, that model. Darren Latham resculpted that, I don't know, a year or so ago, updating the Jess Gudrun one, and he's just kind of standing looking at stuff. But they had some sort of movement in his cloak and such that imparted some dynamic elements to it. And the pose, I feel, worked quite well. Whereas this, I guess there's a little of that with her hair, but I don't feel it.
Her legs sure seem short.
Power.
Her legs are really short. Like, super
particularly
short.
when she has these heels on, such that like a sizable amount of the length is just that she's basically on her tiptoes. Like, her legs are really fucking short.
Yeah,
Well,
and
we should probably be
honestly,
praising the
one of the
model
main
that she's
reasons.
not crouching.
Yeah.
Which is good, I guess, but I'm not
Yeah.
much of a fan.
So I don't know.
Let's stop talking
Wouldn't have
about
been one of my inclusions.
No. And then number 1, the Noise Marine. Interesting.
Yeah, I'm surprised by that. I mean, it's a fun model. It's neat that it's a callback to
It
that
almost
old
seems like,
model.
hey, this model was like the last model Games Workshop release of the year. People remembered it and as a result, people knew that it existed almost. Like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I like that. Like, I'll vote for that.
I wouldn't be surprised if you. Do you think it was close to the top of the voting thing too? Such that it was really easy to vote
I don't
for.
know. Yeah, I don't know. But like, I mean, I like it well enough. But compared to like sort of visionary, excellent sculpts that Games Workshop did released this year, this seems very ho hum. I mean, I'm still glad it exists, and that it was in plastic is nice. But yeah, like compared to that Deepkin leader model with the water cloak, for example, that we mentioned, which I don't remember the name of that model, but so much better, I feel, or so much more like worthy of praise.
Yeah.
And a lot of the models, like from Blackstone Fortress, although admittedly, I feel like Blackstone Fortress, I imagine a lot of people voted for various things from Blackstone Fortress, but the fact that you voted for like every single miniature individually,
Yeah.
like I kind of wonder how some of the statistics broke down for things like that. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's interesting because I could see a lot of people having voted for like the Traitor Guard and Blackstone Fortress, the Man of Iron, and things like that.
Yeah.
And since it wasn't just like one singular thing, it might have sort of diluted that pool of votes.
Yeah.
But I guess the community page aren't going to reveal those statistics, so
Yeah, whatever.
we could only speculate. But I guess overall, as said in the beginning, I'm glad they did this, but it seems it's a little underwhelming.
Yeah.
Like, I guess because it's interesting, like the top 3 models voted by the viewers, and like I wouldn't really want any of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would like maybe the Great Unclean one. But the model's
Be
just
careful
so big.
what you wish for, Eric. I could
But
send one to you.
the model's so big, and it's not a human.
Yeah, it's not. It so isn't.
But yeah, so I don't know. I forget does anyone remember what won last year?
The cargo containers? Was that last year?
I
One
don't
of
think
the
they
years.
won. Did they win? I thought it's just Jake from X for
People-
Fun's joke saying
I
that
think
everybody
it got
should.
a lot of votes. I don't remember if it won or not, but hopefully it won.
Yeah.
God damn.
Good release.
Yeah, those cargo containers. So I don't know. I feel we talked about a bunch of stuff. Like I don't know if we need to talk about anything else before we end the stream, particularly when oh boy, my internet connection is awful. We're still at 40% of the frames have been dropped. Like most of the time it's like 2%.
That's like why I stopped streaming.
Really bad.
It's pretty neat. Well, I mean, we can end this soon, but perhaps we could say, does the Night Goblins have been started to be released, or what Gloom Spite gets, or something like that? We could maybe talk about like one of the models or something. Does any of all the stuff we've seen thus far, does anything stand out to you, particularly you, Greg? You used to play orcs and stuff. You like things. Has anything stood out to you as being?
I would kind of have to look through, because they showed lots of models. I like the squig hoppers that had like lances, like they were knights.
Mm-hmm.
I thought they were great. The Mad King, or what's he called?
The Loon King.
I
The
can't
Loon
find
King.
the squig hoppers, but here's the Loon
The Loon
King.
King's pretty good.
Let's look at the Loon King. I like him. He's I feel of most of the stuff, he looks the most sinister. He has the little weird looking squigs, carrying his cape. Yes, oh boy. There's like normally the like little 360 view, it normally takes about a second to load. It's about a quarter of the way done. Fuck, goddamn internet. What is wrong with you? I mean, there it said we had 0 kilobytes per second. It monitoring, like, Jesus, that's bad.
Why don't we just stop the stream?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
we probably should.
Just stop the stream.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening.
We'll
be back.
It's been real.
Yeah, it's been real. Hopefully the next stream goes a little better. Maybe I have to get a long Ethernet cable to fish over here, and it'll be better. All right, everybody. Over and out.